Welcome to the Renegade Yogi Podcast Experience. Join myself, Zorananda, and this episode's guest as we explore yoga in the modern world. Prepare yourself as we will experience yoga like never before. Hello and welcome to the Renegade Yogi Podcast Experience. My name is Zorananda. Thank you for joining me today, tuning into this podcast and wanting to learn more about yoga. And today in particular, I am discussing the first kosha in this kosha series, and that is the Annamaya Kosha. So Annamaya simply translates to food sheath. So more accurately, food illusion sheath. So Annamaya Kosha. So Anna means food or physicality, and Maya means illusion, and Kosha means sheath. And as you can tell by the name, it has to do everything with physicality, particularly your own physicality, your body, and the vehicle that it is that allows you to move about in your world. And so this kosha has everything to do with what makes you who you are as a physical being. And this one is obviously important because it is our direct interface with all the experiences that we have, right? So without the body, we wouldn't have the objective experience that we have in our daily lives. And so it's important to treat it with reverence and to take care of it as best as we can. But we all know that we all have our own vices and we all have our own desires, and we are imperfect by nature. And so we tend to make mistakes that are in hindsight always, right? So in the moment, we will be so driven by the excitement of what's happening that we might put ourselves into circumstances and situations where we end up regretting the next day or the next week or sometime later in our life. And it can be something simple as drinking too much alcohol, just getting hammered and being at a party and having a great time, but then you drink too much and you make a fool of yourself, and then the next day you're hungover, you have a massive headache, you're vomiting, you can barely eat or drink, and you say to yourself, I'm never doing that again. But what ends up happening, we do it again. And so then this cyclical patterning and cyclical behavior is a part of being human, a part of our lesson of being a physical being, that we almost can't escape the cyclical nature of our tendencies. And so the knowledge around Annamaya Kosha can shed light on how we approach dealing with our physical vehicle. And in that, the most typical is understanding what we're putting into our body. So that goes with air, water, and food, right? So those are the three main things that are going in and out of our body at all times, right? So we're breathing at all times autonomically, so just automatically. But we can decide to be conscious about our breath. So if that means we take a nice deep inhale and exhale slowly. So in a moment, we can decide to do that, but then when we are performing a task and we are at work and we're doing computer work, or we're in a shop somewhere fabricating something, or we're in a bakery or what have you, in a restaurant, when you have these objectives, that decision to consciously breathe isn't necessary because the autonomic system is taking care of the need for regular breathing while we focus on something else. Then the next is water. So obviously, again, we need water, but we don't need to be consuming it all the time. We just need enough throughout a day to stay hydrated. And there's a bit of a debate back and forth from the yoga community to the scientific community to like nutrition and diet, where in the mainstream you'll hear you need to drink 8 glasses of water, or at least, I think, what does that amount to, like 8 glasses, like maybe under 5 liters. I think that may be even too much. Maybe like 2 liters of water a day. Wherein the yoga community, and specifically traditionally in yoga, there isn't an emphasis on needing to drink that much water. Like even Sadhguru himself says that you only drink water when you're thirsty, because there are other things that can provide hydration for you, mainly fruits. So if you just have a healthy diet of fruit, then you're going to get that hydration, especially if it's watery fruit like watermelon and citrus like oranges and grapefruits and you name it, right? But regardless of how much water you're drinking, it's still a necessity for this body. It's still one of the 3 main components, right? Air, food, water. And then you want to look at the quality of your water. Luckily, where I'm from, in Edmonton, we have one of the world's best filtration systems for our water. It goes through 5 steps of filtration, where the last one is a UV light, which kills all the bacteria. And that's not the case for everywhere else, right? You can look up statistics about the United States and water quality of tap water in the United States, and typically, even in major cities, like I've been to New York several times, and the water's kind of gross. And that's not to say that's everywhere, because different states and different municipalities are going to have better systems in place. But I think overall, the quality of tap water in America and even in Canada is pretty low, with the exception of Edmonton, just because they've invested in a really powerful water filtration system. But if you're aware of what the benefits are to drinking spring water and drinking certain filtered waters, that that the water quality reflects in where it's coming from, right? So I try my best to avoid drinking tap water, even in the city that I'm from, and it's touted as, such clean water, because the piping underground a lot of the times is really old. It's from like decades ago, where they're finding traces of lead and other metals that are leaching from these old pipes, right? So when you're looking at how you want to maintain your Annamaya Kosha on the level of water, the best thing that you're going to want to do is get spring water. And if you got to think of it this way, you're always paying for water, especially if you're in Canada, especially if you're in Edmonton. You get a water bill, and if you're always drinking tap water, it may seem like you're getting it for free because you can just turn on your tap and drink it, but you're paying for the usage of that water. You're actually paying for the system that brings the water to you. And so you just got to think, if you were to stop drinking tap water and only use the water for, washing and, cleaning your dishes, taking a shower, washing your clothes, the amount of money that you spend on tap water just kind of transfers over to the water that you would be getting, say, from a store, right? Because for the most part, you're paying for the jug, right? So say if you go to buy some spring water from a grocery store or a local farmer's market, I don't know where, that majority of what your cost is the jug that you end up reusing anyways. And then the water is a small amount. So say if you have a 5-gallon or 18-liter jug of water, usually the water costs like $4 to $5, but the jug itself costs $10. And I'm a bit of a ramble here, but I'm trying to get to my main points here. So if you have this belief in your mind that, well, I don't want to go and pay for water, even if it's spring water, when I can just use tap water and it's free. So that's the cognitive dissonance. The tap water isn't free. You are paying for it in some way. So if you minimize the amount of water that you're actually using from your tap, and you were to get good spring water, that you'll even see and taste and notice the difference between the two. Like, I am fortunate enough to have a kind of aqueduct spring in the city that not many people know about. It's in this park called Gold Bar Park. A cattle farmer over 100 years ago tapped the spring for his cattle, and that neighborhood now is where his farmland was. But now it's, part of the neighborhood, and it's a park. And so I would go with a lot of my housemates to fill up our water jugs, and that was the water that we drank. Now I don't do that as much, and I'll just go to Earth's General Store and get some spring water from there. And the other place I'll go that's just like west of the city, about an hour, maybe hour and 20 minutes out, where there's another spring, and that's out in the wilderness, right? Like, there's no tampering of it. They do mobile testing, so they'll have like a big truck that goes and tests the water, and they'll put up signs that, the water's been tested and it's good. So the benefit is that typically in tap water, you have an industrial fluoride in it. And the thing about water is, no matter what source you get it from, there's fluoride in it, even if you go to like a spring. And I'm saying unfiltered water. So like tap water is filtered and cleaned, but then they add the chlorine and they add the fluoride in it. Spring water has a whole bunch of other minerals, and it has naturally occurring fluoride. And the difference is that the fluoride in tap water is coming from industrial manufacturing. So it's a chemical that's produced and is considered a waste product, and that is used to put into tap water to help, reform or protect enamel. Like, I read this whole thing about what fluoride actually does, and there are benefits to it, but the difference is that when you would compare like a synthetic fluoride that's coming from industry and naturally occurring fluoride, is that the body can actually get rid of the naturally occurring fluoride. So if there's any excess in the body, so the teeth uses up what it can, but whatever's left over that it can't, instead of just putting it in places in our body to calcify, it's able to eliminate it. But the industrial fluoride, which is typically synthetic, cannot be broken down. And that's where there's all these theories that ingesting fluoride can lead to a calcification of the pineal gland. The thing is, on occasion I drink tap water, and I don't find myself dumbing down away from the spiritual practice that I have, or the way of being that I desire of a presence of divinity. That's something that I'm still deeply and profoundly seeking towards. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't these long-term effects, right? And that's usually what they're pointing to, is like, well, you don't think that it's affecting you now, but later down the road, when you're 50 or 60 or 70, the calcification has gone to so bad, or like so far, that that's where there's going to be negative effects. So if you're concerned about that, your best option is spring water. And think of making the choice to get spring water as an investment into your body, because it's literally something that you're taking and you're consuming. And that is money that is going towards a business that is providing the spring water, or at least providing the bottles, that you then know the quality of water that's going in you is going to have so many more benefits than the tap water. And this then goes into the intelligence of water, right? A good friend of mine, he was explaining to me why spring water is really so much more beneficial than tap water, is because of how the water flows. So out in nature, the way that water flows is based on what he was saying, is it maintains its kind of like crystalline geometry, that it doesn't flow on angles. It's just like straight flow curves and kind of circular and round, where tap water is going through a lot of piping at right angles, and there's interruptions in flow, right? So there's this kind of jaggedness and this roughness to the water that changes its crystalline kind of matrices in its molecular structure. And that's hard to really try to prove, or it's kind of hard to justify. But if you were to just think about what it takes to get the water from a reservoir from wherever you're from, if your city has a reservoir, or if there's a lake, or if there's a river, and what it takes to get into the processing plant, from the processing plant to all the houses, and the amount of energy that it takes to do that, the cost that it takes to do that, and the overall just like effort, right? Where if you look at a spring, there's just constant flow, and it almost is at ease, right? There's nothing there really needing to pump it out. There's nothing there that's really needed to manufacture a way for the water to come out. It's just fed through. And the feeling of also being out in nature, being around the trees, being around the earth, being around the animals, there's animals that drink from the spring. There's, all the plants around that are fed by the water. And it's refreshing, and it's cold, and it, especially in like the summer when it's hot and you come upon a spring, it's just so magical almost, right? And then so just imagine then drinking that water daily, and what can you imagine within yourself that would change when you have that water in you, as opposed to tap water that is chemically treated, that has to go through all these steps of filtration, that is running through all these old pipes, and you know, is coming from an industry that is run mainly by wealthy men who control water, right? So then there's all this energy, there's all this karma around just getting the tap water, right? And the regulation of it and the control of it, where in nature there's no control of it. It's just free. It's flowing free. There's no person, there's no body, there's no one that gatekeeps it or anything, right? So then when you consider the Annamaya Kosha in your body and water, going for spring water is going to help resonate you towards that sense of freedom, right? Because you're getting unadulterated water, and you will naturally feel like you can tune into the intelligence of that water. And this is where, a deeper yoga practice comes into play, in meditating with the water and, putting the water in a glass jar and sitting with it and putting your intentions into it and praying with it and chanting with it, singing to it, doing something that is seemingly unconventional, right? Those are things that we're not taught in our world. When we're kids, we're just like, oh yeah, there's just water and you just drink it, right? There's no reverence to it. I sense that it's like this perfect substance for maintaining our life force. It's just water, and it comes out of the tap, and you can drink it whenever you want, right? And so when we shift towards a more natural way of obtaining the water and communicating with it and receiving its intelligence, we are developing a relationship with it that really becomes profound. And then we shift towards food. And this one is really important because you are what you eat, right? And the foods literally convert into our tissues. And so if you've ever known anybody with anorexia, or you've had anorexia, you know what happens when you neglect feeding yourself, when you neglect giving yourself the proper nutrition. I don't want to sound like an asshole, but you literally waste away. And it's sad and it's tragic, because there are some people who lose their lives because they are fixated on the image of their body to such a grotesque extent that they just don't eat at all. And so if you were to look at the Annamaya Kosha and how it's tied directly to your physical body and the food that you eat to make the body the way that it is, completely neglecting it and not giving it any food, it makes sense why all of a sudden you would just deteriorate, right? So when you look at then the mainstream way and the scientific and dietary way of understanding what diet you need, we're given the food triangle and the hierarchy of what foods are important over others. So our relationship with food is really similar then with the relationship that we have with water, and that we want to look at how we can naturalize our diet. And the addiction here is towards processed food and packaged food because of a few categories. It's convenient, it's easy to make, it's easy to buy, and it doesn't take up time, right? Because we have shit to do, so we don't really want to spend an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours making and cooking food. So we just want to get a pizza from the store and, pop it in the oven, and there you go, convenient. Hey, I have a pizza in my freezer. I'm probably going to eat one today or, in a couple days or something. And so we all want the conveniences, right? We want to go to a store where we can buy something cheap, it's easy, it's convenient, quick to make. Understandable, right? So when you look at what foods that you're putting into your body and the state of your body, right? Most of the time, we're very good at ignoring everything. We can look ourselves dead in the eye, in the mirror, and see the problems that we have. Either it's acne, we're overweight, got bags under our eyes, brittle nails, brittle hair, you name it. Skin spots, skin issues like psoriasis and eczema. And we'll just look right past it and be like, well, there's nothing I can do about that, and continue living the life that we just are so comfortable living, where we go to the grocery store once a week, we get all the same foods, and we just do all the same things. And so what yoga purports is to look at the Annamaya Kosha and look at the intake of food and begin to whittle out the things that cause issues, right? So cause inflammation, cause allergies, cause digestive issues, you name it. So whenever there's a negative effect, that we want to take those things out. And some of the biggest ones are overconsumption of dairy, overconsumption of meat, overconsumption of wheat and gluten. So keyword, overconsumption. So if you're a person that, you'll have some cheese here and there, you'll have a steak once a week, you have some pasta, fine, right? I do the same thing. I do eat meat. I'm very particular about the meat that I eat. I mainly eat bison. I'll have a steak occasionally. And maybe once a month or every couple months, I'll get a burger from a reputable place. Not like fast food. I stay away from all that stuff, like McDonald's and Wendy's and fuck all that. But I still manage my diet in moderation. So the thing is overconsumption. That's what you want to avoid, because the over consuming of anything, the body can't handle excess, right? And that's why we get arthritis and crazy inflammation, and we become super overweight, and we have other sorts of health issues, heart issues, kidney issues. And unless you have to follow a certain diet, there are people who have to follow a carnivore diet that literally their digestive system can't handle anything else for whatever reason. We typically have a balance of enzymes between the kind of enzymes that break down meat proteins and the kind of enzymes that break down vegetable proteins and fiber. And so there are some people where the ratio is so off that they have very, very, very little plant-based enzymes, and they have an abundant source of meat enzymes. And so they survive off meat. And for the most part, I do have friends that are on carnivore diets, and they says it completely changed their lives for the better, right? So if you're not in that category, what you want to look at is, okay, when I sit down for a meal, so just in a day, what am I having for breakfast? If I eat breakfast, what am I having for lunch? What am I having for dinner? And the kind of rule of thumb that even my teacher goes by is you want to eat things that are easy for the digestive system, right? So you don't want to be eating overly dense things. You don't want to be eating overly processed things where your digestive system struggles to digest what you're eating. And it may not even seem like there's an issue, right? Because there's plenty of people who are so totally tuned out of their bodies that they eat anything and all things. Like they'll just go and get like 6 donuts and eat all 6 donuts and drink 3 coffees and, then go to McDonald's and have 2 cheeseburgers. And then at lunch they, get like a McCain pizza or something, right? And then it's all satisfying to them. That's the tricky thing, and like the confusing thing about all this is that you can eat all that garbage food and you can enjoy it and you can be like, wow, this is so good, oh my God. But then something is happening. You know that something's not right. You'll wake up at night in sweats and you'll be like, oh man, like, I just feel so bad and I'm just super sweaty and but then you just shake it off and you go back to bed and you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I have heartburn. So you take heartburn medication. Then you're back to the whole regimen of, drinking coffee all day and not eating breakfast and then eating a shitty lunch and then coming home and eating fast food. That looking at the types of foods that are going to be easy on your digestion is going to help you to shift into that more natural sense of a diet, right? So literally eating nature. So fruits and vegetables, animals, because they're part of it too. And, I was vegetarian for 6 years and I went back to eating meat. And it was one of the best decisions I made because of my body type, that being a vegetarian wasn't actually supportive of the type of body that I had. It kept me very skinny at my height. I'm 6'2", so being 6'2" and 150 pounds, I look gaunt, right? But now, from switching to eating meat, I ended up gaining like 25 pounds in a year and going from 160 to like 185. And from working out and doing a lot of training, I dropped down to 170. And now I'm like the best shape in my life and I feel great and I feel super strong. And, I'm not over consuming either. I'm not like eating 6 meals a day. I'm just having my 3 meals. I have my breakfast. Sometimes I don't even eat breakfast because I'm not hungry. Or if I do eat breakfast, I'm having just like some granola with fruit and almond milk. And then in the afternoon, I'll have like chili or something. And then in the evening, I'll make my dinner, whatever that is, right? But then I'm really looking at what it is that I'm taking in daily. And that is what's really going to give you a better understanding of what it means to maintain this body. That we we want to have a balance between the pleasure of eating and the survival of eating, right? So we're also eating to survive. Like, that's the biggest thing, because if you just stop eating, you're going to die eventually, right? So underlining it all, we're always eating to survive, okay? But we totally put that into our subconscious and into our unconscious, that we hyper focus on pleasure. So every time we go to eat, we're always thinking of wanting to eat the most delicious thing. And that's what can turn into addiction, because then we are just so obsessed with like going to certain restaurants because like of how the food tastes and stuff. And that's fine to having deliciously made meals. But if that's all you're focusing on, chances are you're going to be eating just garbage food. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you're only driven by taste and the pleasure of eating, that you'll justify eating like some of the worst fucking foods, even though it looks good. And that's what we want to avoid here, that we want to stay on track with natural eating and maintaining the body in a healthy state. And that means going to the grocery store for lunch like I did the other day. I got like an egg salad sandwich, and then I was going to go buy some cookies, and I was like, no, I'm going to get fruit instead. So I just got like a thing of berries. And it's in those moments that you give so much more service to your body than you would otherwise, right? Because I wasn't falling into the like pleasure of the taste of the cookies and the sweetness and the sugar. And I was like, I can get that satisfaction from eating fruit, and know that the strawberries and the raspberries and the blueberries and the blackberries are going to do so much more for me on levels that I'm not even aware of, because all I'm focusing on is eating something sweet. So now when you look at all three of those, right? So air, quality of air. And I'm going to come back to that one because I didn't really get into some important things. Water, quality of food. Now you have the physical activity part of maintaining the Annamaya Kosha. So before I get to that, one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is to get the fuck out of a city and go breathe fresh air. Get out of the city. I know I tell this to so many people, okay? I don't really care where you live or what limitations you have. We all have friends with a car, okay? We all have friends with a car. Most of us work. We all have money, okay? So to think to yourself that you can't get out of the city for even a day and go out in nature is preposterous. I'm sorry to say, because if you have 2 weeks of something that you spend $5 to $10 on every day, I guarantee it's coffee. I guarantee it's like some shitty like treat or something. So for 2 weeks, don't spend that money. Save that money. Either if you have a car or not, go to a friend, be like, hey, let's go out into nature for a day just to breathe fresh air, just to put our phones in our cars and just go on a walk. Please do it. Please do this regularly. I know right now in Edmonton, it's fucking winter outside, and it's cold, it's super snowy. So obviously the best time is to do that in the summer. And that's what I love doing. Like, one of my favorite things is I'll drive an hour and a half north to this place called Tawatna Valley. And there are just like amazing wild blueberry fields everywhere. So I'll just spend 4 or 5 hours picking wild blueberries. And chances are you have stuff like that around you too. And it just takes a little bit of research, or it just takes some exploration, you know, like there are trails and there are natural parks and national parks and provincial parks and state parks everywhere. You have access to these places. Like, that's why they're there and preserved, is for you to go and be in it. So instead of being fixed in this routine of, oh, the weekend's coming, I've got to go out and I've got to like go and party and I got to go drink and I got to go do this and I got to go do that. Just like take one weekend where you just don't do that bullshit. You don't spend all that money on fucking shitty things, and you just go out in nature and you just breathe fresh air. Give your lungs that break of being in a dirty city, being in a smoggy city or whatever, right? Just please do your body that service, and you'll see how beautiful the world is, because that's really what we're missing in this day and age, with like all the like hyper like sensualized media and social media, that we're just like bombarded with so much shit all the time. Of like, the world is ending because of greenhouse gases and global warming and climate crisis, and Russia's gonna nuke Ukraine and all this shit, and United States and Biden and whatever, right? We're just bombarded with bullshit and bullshit and bullshit. Just leave the fucking city, go out in nature, breathe fresh air. If you can find a spring, bonus. Bring some good food. There you have it. You have the three main components of maintaining a healthy Annamaya Kosha, where you get fresh air, you have fresh, clean water, and you have fresh, clean food, and just enjoy being a human being out there, away from all the bullshit for even a day. And you'll see how much it recharges you, how much it rejuvenates you. And so then when you do come back to your life, you're less stressed, you're less on edge, you're less stimulated, and you're more balanced and you're more clear. So then when it comes to the tasks that you have at work or at home or whatever, wherever, you can handle it better because you self-regulated. And what you've regulated with going out and breathing that fresh air, drinking that clean water, eating that fresh food, is you've regulated your hormones, you've regulated your endocrine system, your nervous system, your circulatory system, and it just does so many benefits. And that can happen from one day. Like, that's not bullshit. Like, there's so many resources and there's so many studies of saying what going out in nature does. That's why people are obsessed with it. Like, why do you think people just love every day going on hikes? Like, there are literally people who, when the summer comes, they'll take like 10 days off work to just like go out in nature and be out there the whole time, right? So all of that works towards the next kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha. And this has to do with the energetics of everything. So we went into the three main components of maintaining the physical body: the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. And those all feed into the pranic body. And so how I'm going to end this here is, the important yogic part in really harmonizing all of those three components is your yoga practice. So breathing techniques for the air, right? So how we bring in air in and out of our body. So doing techniques like Kapalabhati or Bhastrika or Anuloma Viloma. And then Ayurveda goes into the water and the food, right? So what we're doing to really look at the balance of everything, of all the different foods that we eat. And then the asana practice is then the physical fitness part of maintaining the body. So I'll leave it at that. I hope that's all helpful. I'm really just doing my best to put this kind of information out there so that you can feel inspired to make changes in your life that are manageable, right? Because I understand that taking on a yoga practice can be actually quite intimidated. There's a lot out there, and there are people who are fantastic yogis and they're very committed. And when you see the things that they can do, it looks really hard, and it looks like you need to change everything about yourself in order to do the things that some of these yogis are doing, right? And that's not the case at all, because there are surely millions of yogis who are just regular people. Like, they're not Instagram famous or anything. They're not influencers. They're just regular people, and they do yoga regularly, and they live a happy and a healthy life. And so what I want to navigate is how I can get people interested in adding yoga into their life one step at a time, comfortably, and manage it in a holistic way where it's not a burden, right? So I'm not expecting anyone to suddenly need to practice every single day, 2 hours a day. You need to be chanting mantras. You need to be meditating all the time. Like, no, man, we all live busy fucking lives. Like, I have a full-time job. I, work 7 to 3:30, and then I have a dog, so I have to take care of him. And I have all my other projects. I'm writing a book. I'm writing music and recording music. I have this podcast. And so my time for yoga are in key moments that are manageable for me. So like early in the morning when I wake up, I do like a 15-minute practice just to like get into my body, wake myself up, do some breathing techniques, do some stretches, meditate a little bit. And then I have my like once to twice a week where I go into a studio and I do a really hard, really intense practice. And that's helping me get back into the kind of practice that I had in the past, because how I practiced 5 years ago is not how I practice today. And I'm shifting back into that in a safer way just because I had some silly injuries from doing yoga postures that really shouldn't have been doing to the extent that I was doing. So remember, yoga is an addition. It's not meant to take you out of the life you live. You don't have to be this person where suddenly you need to get a yoga teacher training and you need to travel the world and you need to, spread yoga. It's not a religion, okay? This isn't about being a missionary. It's an addition, and it has a set of tools. And those tools help you understand how to live a more healthy life, right? And so looking at the koshas, the information of the koshas is one tool in the toolkit of yoga, and I'm doing my best to try to iterate it and elaborate on it in a way where it can make sense so that when you do go to the grocery store next, you look at your shopping cart and you go, you know what? What are some of the things that I can actually take out of my shopping cart and I can replace them with healthier things, right? That can be step one. That can be your yoga, is how do I slightly change my diet? So if I just bought like 2 apple pies, maybe I'll put 1 apple pie back and I'll buy oats and apples and I'll make like my own kind of apple pie dish, right? And those are super simple and easy to make, like a kind of apple pie crumble, right? And it's delicious, and you make it yourself, and it's so much more satisfying than just like gorging yourself on this whole apple pie that, who knows what kind of ingredients are in it. But I digress. thank you for listening and tuning in. You can find my book, find my music, and find my meditations on my website, www.zorananda.com. So that's spelled ZORANANDA.com. I have 3 versions of my book on there. There's a hardcover, which is the most expensive, the paperback, which is like the medium expensive, and an ebook, which is $5. That's what I recommend. Get it cheap, get it affordably. I just want to get people reading it and getting it out there, just because of how helpful it can be to look at how to approach meditation. And you can purchase my music if you want. Otherwise, you can just go onto Spotify, look me up on there, Zorananda, and I have 3 albums. My most recent one, Opening, is the one that I really love the most. I did that album with my good friend Marin, who's my violin teacher. So we did acoustic guitar, violin, and my producer John did orchestral accompaniment for a few of the songs as well. So with that, have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy.